Mohammad Daudzai is Afghanistan's interior minister under President Dr. Ashraf Ghani. In fact, he held the same post under his predecessor. He's also been Afghanistan's ambassador in Iran and Pakistan, so knows the region extremely well. And in the past, before that, has worked with Save Our Children and the UNDP as well.
And Chief of Staff with President Karzai.
Twice,
yes.
in fact. Mr. Daudzai, thanks so much for giving us time on NDTV. Now, you've come through a long, contentious election process. It's finally been successful. And that's a culmination of a political transition, an economic transition that is still going on, and a security transition that started and will continue.
Yes.
You have mentioned that India is one of Afghanistan's all-weather friends, most trusted friends. In terms of those three transitions, where do you see India and Afghanistan?
Well, you see, the political transition and security transition are supposed to be completed in 2014. The economic transition will continue. That will take many more years to settle down with the vacuum that will be created by the drawdown of international forces from 150,000 to 10,000. It will have consequences for our economy. But to take each of them separate, the political transition completed, and as you say, after long debate, that put our politicians and state elders at test. But luckily they passed, all of them, and they agreed on the national unity government, which is an opportunity. And the security transition, in practice, it's complete.
Already.
In theory, it's supposed to be completed in December.
But you already have control of the whole country.
We already have control of the whole country. We lead all security operations and conduct since 4, 5, 6 months. I mean, gradually. Now, India, as I have said yesterday also, it's an all-weather, time-tested friend of us, and there is no limitation in which area we can cooperate, in which area we cannot. They're all areas we have cooperated, and we are looking forward to expand those cooperations. And having new governments in both countries, it's an opportunity. Both of them can give another boost to the already very good relationship.
In fact, you have mentioned that President Ghani's slogan was continuity and reform, and you've associated India with that continuity, and expanding on that is what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The slogan of Dr. Ghani's team was continuation and reforms, and in regards to India, the continuation word applies, but with improvement, with expansion. That goes without saying.
That expansion, and as you're talking about the vacuum that comes in both economically possibly and security-wise, where do you visualize that arrangement with India expanding? How do you visualize that?
Let me be a bit more blunt here. Until 14 years ago, Afghans were faced with a knot that we could not open it ourselves. Therefore, we needed some kind of international intervention. And accidentally, or whatever the reason, it happened. The United States and NATO countries, they came and they helped us to open that knot, to untie that knot. And then they helped us to rebuild our security forces. And India was also part of it. They have been helping us all along. But now, we don't feel any longer for any combat role for any international forces, no matter Americans, NATO, anybody. Because Afghans themselves are able to do that, and that sense of ownership that this is our country and we have to defend it, that is getting stronger as the drawdown is completing officially. Now, for India and for United States, for NATO, for all Western countries, what we need from them is training, advisory, and equipment assistance. The rest we can do ourselves, inshallah.
And talking about that training, now India has already been providing ANSF, whether it's the ANP or the ANA, with training in India. The possibility, I do remember President Karzai mentioning that maybe we have Indian instructors coming to the Sandhurst by the Sand, as it's called, the UK. What more can you visualize vis-a-vis training?
Well, we can already we sent quite a large number of civil students to India for training in various fields. We can send police, let's say, for training to India for longer term courses, I mean for higher degrees, which at the moment we only send to Russia. To all other countries we send for short term courses. Maybe we can send police officers for long term courses. And the most important thing is technology and equipments that we need from all our partners, from all those countries with whom we have signed strategic partnership agreements. We are expecting them to provide us with those assistance.
I know you're talking about the police here, but when I spoke to former President Karzai and he talked about equipment that was needed, for, say, for the ANA, he was always stressing on India needed to do more. In terms of, you said no combat role for anybody, but
Correct.
combat equipment.
Correct.
India's been providing, say, helicopters that can take troops, not combat role or lethal equipment as it's called. Would you visualize India, would you want India to do that first of all, and would you see the new government possibly renegotiating what the old position was?
I think the new government will follow the market strategy. At the moment, we are buying Russian helicopters, for instance, because A, the Afghans are familiar with it, and B, they are cheaper in market, and C, it has a very good performance. So with India, when it comes to equipment, that market strategy would apply. If it's cheaper, it's more appropriate for Afghan climate. If it's accompanied with aggressive training program, if maintenance is easier for us, then we will buy those kind of equipments from India. If we find a better option somewhere else, obviously we will go for that.
But reading between the lines, because there has been some kind of talk between India, Russia and Afghanistan to supply Russian-made helicopters or other lethal equipment that can be used by the Afghans themselves.
Yes.
Do you visualize that moving forward?
Yes, that was discussed at some point, but I think that has to be taken forward, because we do have problem with the maintenance of let's say, as an example, take as example the Russian helicopters, for instance, because the American system is not familiar with that. And India is closer to us than Russia in terms of maintenance. If we establish that maintenance system, for instance, in Kabul, that would be very useful for us. And that kind of regional cooperation overall, we encourage that, because India, China, Russia, when India and China are the category of emerging powers in the region, and we are looking forward not to have friendship that's limited to military aspect, wide aspect. Even why not talk of reconciliation role for these bigger powers to help Afghanistan and to help the region to reconcile with the insurgents that are a threat for all of us.
The reconciliation, since you've brought that up, and you also mentioned that India is closer to Afghanistan than Russia geographically and otherwise as well. Well, Pakistan is even closer to you than that. You have faced problems of cross-border terrorism, cross-border firing. Kunar province, which often faces shelling. We've been facing that along the LOC and the border as well. Now, terrorism and Pakistan, yes, regional powers can play a role, global powers can play a role, but isn't Pakistan the crux of the problem for you and for other countries?
It is true, it is the crux of the problem, but then we need to go beyond that, go a bit deeper. That why is Pakistan, for instance, not cooperating to the level that Afghans expect them in terms of reconciliation? Then it comes up that their relationship within the region, with India and with Afghanistan, the historic perspective, the border disputes, all those issues comes, which makes the whole picture very complex.
Sure.
This is why we want that to expand it from bilateral to multilateral and to regional. In the past 10 years, we focused more on a trilateral of US, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. It didn't work. We focused on Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkey. It's trilateral. It worked in some respects, but it didn't work in reconciliation.
Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, has that worked a little more?
That's the beginning, and we are attaching a lot of hopes to that, because we all know the nature of Pakistan-China relationship and the amount of investment China is doing in Pakistan. So that gives us a new hope that that trilateral may lead us to a comprehensive solution of our regional problem, a comprehensive solution for the so-called insurgency terrorism, a solution that's sustainable and a solution that's indigenous, that's regional, that we can embrace by heart.
Again, when you're talking about Pakistan and the problem that's created there, it's very complex, as you said. But what about what are called non-state actors which are working within the establishment, whether it's the ISI or elements of the army, or who are compounding this problem and may not want a solution?
It's true, that's right. ISI is a state actor, but then there are non-state actors that are working freely in Pakistan, and that's a source of problem for all of us. We all know that Afghan Taliban went across the Durand line to the other side, to their hideouts, to madrasas, to other kind of shelters, and then they receive assistance, God knows from whom, because it's on the other side of the line. But when they come back, they are accompanied by Pakistani nationals, which we always have proof of that. And organizations such as Lashkar-e-Taiba and others, they are helping them practically on the ground. But that's now not only limited to Pakistani-based terrorist outfits. We have, let's say, ETIM, the East Turkestan Islamic movement, yes. The Uyghurs, and then you have IMU. Yes. They all accompany in spring. Taliban come back to Afghanistan, and in fact they use Afghanistan as a passage to go to other countries. So this is why we say nothing is now limited to Afghanistan. It's broader, the threat is broader, the problem is broader, and there are new opportunities of new governments, emerging powers in this region. So let's give it a new try. That's our point of view. A
new try, and you talked about proof of these groups coming across the Durand line. Now, both the Americans and the Afghan intelligence have provided proof to India about attacks on Indian assets, yes. Whether it was the embassy in 2008 and 2009, yes. Then the Herat consulate just before the Prime Minister was sworn in. So there's this clear proof that Pakistan elements are involved in attacking Indian assets in Afghanistan?
Well, since I have been Minister of Interior, that one attack took place in Herat, which luckily didn't cause lots of damage to lives and property.
It was linked to the LET.
It was the initial Afghan investigation showed that it was linked to LET. But as you say, LET is considered as a non-state actor, and Pakistan may want even more proofs to take action. These are all stories that India and Afghanistan are familiar with. But when it comes to Pakistan, we don't want to engage with them on details. We want to solve the broader problem with a more comprehensive and coherent approach that involves all of us, and that can get us to a more sustainable solution.
A more comprehensive solution you're talking about now. You mentioned Afghanistan at the crossroads in terms of terrorism.
Passage of terrorism, yes.
But Afghanistan is also the crossroads of connecting Asia, yes. From Southeast Asia through India, yes. If Pakistan allows land transit, say, through to Central Asia, through to West Asia. That's being blocked again by Pakistan.
Well, that's exactly what I mean when I say that we have to have more comprehensive solution that should be the core of which should be economic prosperity for the region, particularly for Afghanistan and Pakistan and in our immediate region. Now, we have signed the CASA 1000 yes. agreement with Pakistan to facilitate electricity from Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan to Pakistan. Pakistan will have economic. TAPI is next. We hope to finalize that and make it a practice. And then we have the the railway line from Turkey to Pakistan, which can extend to India. TAPI also can extend yes. to India, because TAPI, the I is India. Yes. and let's say Gwadar to Central Asia that can pass through Afghanistan, and Chabahar to Kabul is already established, which links us with India. So all those are envisaged as projects that I would call them as peace projects. But even more we can do with each other. Afghanistan is conducive for investment. I mean, we have more stable energy sources now in Kabul than let's say in any major city of Pakistan. Pakistani investors can invest in Afghanistan, in textile and garments. And the idea would be to create economic interest for them. And ultimately the outcome will be that Afghanistan, being on a crossroad of terrorism, will become a crossroad for electricity, gas, and investment, and trade, and business.
So, Mr. Are you envisaging the economic interests outweighing other interests that are spoiling chances for
because
everyone?
Economic interest belongs to people. And other interest does not belong to people. It belongs to institutions.
Talking about the transition again, now security is completely in Afghan hands now. No combat role for any coalition troops. They are training, assisting, equipping, and possibly counter terrorism they may take part in. BSA has been signed, SOFA has been signed. How important is that for Afghanistan for some coalition troops to stay?
It's critically important for Afghanistan that some coalition troops stay for two main reasons. There are other reasons also, but two main. One is that our air force is not yet rebuilt, and we will have to rely on coalition air force support for at least another 2 to 3 years. And if a small number of them stays, that means we will have that air support. And the second one is if it's a Western culture, if they have their boots on the ground, their financial assistance will continue. Which we need for a long period of time to come. Our security forces will be depending on international financial support.
Some say 4 billion to 6 billion here just for the security
Gradually
forces.
It will reduce. At the moment it's 4 million. In reality it's 3.6 billion. 500 is Afghan contribution. But luckily the United States increased it by 1 billion extra for this year, which we are grateful. But as part of our 10-year development decade strategy, we will increase our revenues and also make sure that wastages are taken care of and corruption is controlled. Therefore, the cost will also go down. The revenue will go up and the cost down. Somewhere, let's say after 2020, most of the cost of the Afghan security forces will or should be covered from our own revenues.
Talking about economics again, you talked about how Pakistan's interests could be served if they come and invest there. India has big projects that are lined up in terms of mining, etc., in the Bamiyan sector. True. Do you see any movement coming on there? Because there seems to be some kind of hurdle vis-a-vis security.
China is also faced with the same problem. There are two major Chinese investments also, Messianic and oil in the north, which theoretically it's security problem, but I think they were all waiting for transitions to be completed. This year is the year of transition. I'm sure next year China would also speed up their work in India also. And President Ghani is focusing, I mean, this is one of his top priority, to provide conducive security and legal environment for investors.
Now talking about the transition, Ministry of Defense says ANA, the number of people who have been killed since 2003, added to the ANP who have been killed, say, just in this year itself, is much more than the coalition troops have lost for the last 13 years. So obviously that's the flip side of you taking control of security. Yes. How much do you envisage ANSF handling the situation?
Well, this year compared to last year and previous years, the casualties on the Afghan National Security Forces went, I think, by 10 or 15% up compared to last year. But the enemy casualty was 4 times higher compared to last year. Their casualty is much higher. And the coalition casualty is almost 0. So that proves that there is the handover has taken place already. The control is with the Afghans. But usually when you take control, initially you take extra burden. I imagine last year this time there were 100,000 extra foreign troops in combat role. Yes. And that role is now taken by the same number of the Afghan forces. Their number has not increased. That means their burden has increased, and the increase of burden, and the enemy was thinking that this would be the situation. They had prepared the attacks.
Do you see a change in tactics? Because there seem to be a large attack, say in Sangin.
We do, yes, we do. Let's say previous years, the local guerrilla presence, they will hit and run. But this year they gather people from different parts, from 3-4 provinces, and then attack one particular district, which luckily even with that strategy they have failed to take control of any district. In Sangin also they are failing, and they are reversing now.
You talked about how there should be no limits to your cooperation with any country, and especially with India. I want to just shift focus completely, because there has been some Indian investment, say, in a cricket stadium in Kandahar, for example. India can do a lot to help cricket and football, which are two passions that unite your whole country. Your tweets, I think, if you tweet individually, you sign them UD.
Yeah,
UD. And one of them was about, I think, either the cricket team doing well, and then the German football team winning.
Yes.
So you're passionate about sports as well.
I am.
Do you think that's one area which can really flourish between India and Afghanistan in cooperation?
That's true. That's one area that would flourish between India and Afghanistan. And Afghanistan itself must do more. In India, it must do more on sport, because the 20th century youth, they want different routines than my generation. Go to school, college, have a job. Now the new generation wants more excitement, more cool life, and sport is providing that.
Mr. Daudzai, thank you so much for your time, sir, and we hope we'll see you this time in Kabul.
In Kabul. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Bye.